How's it going, everyone? Sean here from Raw Technique Studios. Today I'm going to be going over the EQP-WAs from Warm Audio. They are modeled after the Pultec EQP-1As, and they have great reviews. I got them about a week ago. I got two of them. They came at different times, but I've had them together for about a week, and they are mono units, so if you're going to be running them on a drum bus or on anything that's stereo, you need two of them. If you're going to just be running it on something mono, like a vocal or like a single instrument that's mono, then you only need one. But I'm going to show you guys how to get them plugged in, what plugs into what, and I'm using the Apollo Twin interface here. So that is what I'll be showing you guys how to plug it into. So if you're an Apollo Twin interface owner and you're thinking about getting some EQs to plug into it, I'll show you how that's set up, as well as in console, the software that runs everything. And then I use Pro Tools for my DAW. I'll show you guys how you can monitor the EQs so you're listening to it as you're making adjustments. And then I'll show you guys how to print that in so it could be in your Pro Tools setup and you have the actual printed EQ'd version. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Alright, so for this tutorial, I have to unplug my microphone because my Apollo Twin only has two inputs, and I'm doing two EQs which go into the inputs at line level, so I won't be able to use my microphone as we're talking, so the audio isn't going to be that great. I will be talking through the camera's microphone, but hopefully that quality is not too bad. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is just see how it's plugged in physically with the cables. On the back of the EQ, we have balanced input right here. You could choose between an XLR or a TRS cable to get plugged in. Then you have over here, this is the balanced output. Either use an XLR or a TRS, so I'm using a TRS on this one. And these are going into my Apollo Twin here. So the balanced input right here, this will come around and it'll go in right here on the Apollo Twin. We have line outs. So the line out right here is going to be going into the balanced input on the EQ. So we're going out of the interface into the EQ, and then the balanced output on the EQ is running into the input of the Apollo Twin. And this is going in at line level. So on the Apollo Twin, when you flip it over, let me turn my monitor down, I go over here to the preamp, and I want to make sure that I'm in line level. I don't want to be in mic because that'll be the wrong one, so I'm going to flip it and I'm going to do line level. Alright, so both my preamps are switched over to line level here since I am using two EQs. So the same thing with the other EQ over there. It's being plugged in the same way. One of my EQs, the output of my EQ is going here. My output of my other EQ is going here. So these are the inputs on the Apollo Twin. And then these two, line out 3 and line out 4, are going to the inputs on the EQs. Alright, so that's the cable routing. Just make sure you're in line level and you are good to go on here. You don't add any gain on the line level. You just keep it at 0. Alright, so you just simply turn them on like that. And I like to wait for them to warm up a bit, so you're actually going through some warm tubes. I don't know if that really matters, but I usually let them warm up for like 10 minutes or so. So once it gets warmed up, we'll start running audio through that. But until then, let's go ahead and look at how it's set up in console. Alright, so in console, what you're going to do is, first thing, go over to the Q outputs right here and make sure that it's set to, on this part where it says line 3-4, make sure it's set to line 3-4, not to mix. And then you can see I have this set up as mix for the headphones, and then nothing else is set. So just set it up like that. And then on your, there's one that says virtual 1 and virtual 2 if it's not already linked. So right here, if I unlink them, you can see virtual 1 and virtual 2 here. What you want to do is just go ahead and select these. I'm going to press link so it is linked together, and these are my DAW outputs. Alright, that's going to be how I get to monitor what I do to these EQs. Once that's set up, go ahead and mute that out, and then turn up the line level, line 3-4, all the way up, so it has level going through your line 3-4 on your interface. And then you're going to have analog 1 and 2, which is going to be the input. That's going to be all the way up to 0 here, and you just leave it as is. So you want to keep that not muted or anything, just keep it like that. Up here, like I said before, you're not adding any gain on it. You just want to keep it right here. 10 dB is the all the way turned down for line level, and you do that for both of these, analog 1 and 2. And that's it for console setup. So now in Pro Tools, I'll have my mix bus running through the EQs, and then the output will just be what we're listening to. And then once if I like it and I want to print it down, then I could create an audio track and record that printed signal. All right, another thing in Pro Tools, after you get that set up, you want to go to your playback engine. Make sure that the interface is selected here. So Universal Audio Thunderbolt, that's for the Apollo Twin. So I press OK there. And then also in my I/O, I just want to make sure that I have access to everything. So what I do is go ahead and press default, and that'll show up everything that's there. My inputs, I press default, so I can see everything right there. Buses, same thing. I like to default everything out. And then once that's good, press OK. Now what you need to do is send your signal from Pro Tools into the line out 3-4, which goes into the EQs, and then the EQs will send the audio back into your interface so that it could be printed down if you'd like. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go on my mix bus, go to output, and then I'm going to go virtual 1-2. Now this is going to make it to where all the audio that's running out of this mix bus is now going through these EQs. So what I want to do is move some of these because I don't want to be limiting yet. I already have all my plugins on here. Let's just mute out the Pultec plugin that I have on here. Alright, I'll press play and get everything running through the EQs. They're both on. They are getting a little bit warm. They're not completely warm yet, but let's go ahead and run it through. I have the EQs on. If you want to have it bypassed, there is a way to just not run through any EQ, but you're still, if it's in bypass mode here, you'll still be running through the transformer and the tubes and all of that stuff. So there is some sound that you get from it just running through bypass. So let's go ahead and press play, see what that sounds like. Quiero invitarte a comer, dime si se va a poder. Yo te paso a buscar y te traigo antes del anochecer. Alright, so that's running through bypass, and then here it is running through, not running through the EQs. Quiero invitarte a comer, dime si se va a poder. Yo te paso a buscar y te traigo antes del anochecer. Okay, so now I'm going to flip it back over to the EQs. Quiero invitarte a comer, dime si se va a poder. Yo te paso a buscar y te traigo antes del anochecer. Deseo tocar tu cuerpo. Okay, let's go ahead and put the EQs out of bypass. Now the EQs are on, and anything we do here will affect the signal. Let's go ahead and start from scratch on both of these. And it is a stereo signal since I am running through both of them. So I need them to be exactly the same in order to have a balanced mix. Alright, so let's just go ahead and run through it, and you'll hear it as it plays. Quiero invitarte a comer, dime si se va a poder. Yo te paso a buscar y te traigo antes del anochecer. Deseo tocar tu cuerpo pa' que se erice tu piel y llenarte de besos como siempre soñé. Ponte pa' mi mami, ponte, ponte mami pa' mi ponte, ponte pa' mi mami, ponte. Conmigo no se pierde todo. Yo sé que se siente haber sido lastimado, pero lo que no sirve yo lo dejo en el pasado. Mi vida entera te la dedico a tu lado. Primera vez que yo me siento tan enamorado. Y si quiero un anillo, baby, para asegurarte que no voy a jugar contigo y siempre voy a amarte. Si me
me permites, mami, yo puedo cuidarte. Y te juro por Dios que nunca voy a lastimarte. Dame tu mano, bebé, te voy a presumir como es. No hay razón para esconderte si tú eres mi mujer. Quiero invitarte a comer, dime si se va a poder. Yo te paso a buscar y te traigo antes del anochecer. Deseo tocar tu cuerpo pa' que se erice tu piel y llenarte de besos como siempre soñé. Ponte pa' mi mami, ponte. Ponte mami, pa' mi ponte. Ponte pa' mi mami, ponte. Conmigo no se pierde todo. Yo te quiero solo pa' mí, es que no me gusta compartir. Yo te brindo todo mi amor, solo tienes que decir que sí. Baby, coopera, que aceptes mi invitación, eso quisiera.
Okay, so that was just messing with a couple different settings there. The boost, the cuts, the taking from sharp, going up to 3 on the broad, doing a boost at 5 dB at 16K, and everything I do here I'm also doing on this one. Since I am on a stereo sound, I'm not just running through one of them, I am running through both. I don't want it to be unbalanced, so they're both getting the same exact settings. The cut, I like to do a boost on the high end and then cut on the at 20K, and it just makes it to where I could get that nice brightness out of something but kill the harshness of it at the same time. So I've been doing that a lot lately when using these. I think it sounds really good. The boost, it can get kind of muddy if you just do a bunch of boosting on like the mix bus. So I would say if you're going to do a boost, also do a cut, and then it kind of makes it sound bigger but not too muddy. And yeah, I think that it sounds good overall, but I will level match a test right now. So I have a boost and everything that we just listened to, but I'm going to play it right now, and then I'm going to go into the video editing software and level up the bypassed version so you could compare it back to back without it being gain boosted, because this is adding gain. I'm adding a boost so it gets louder. So here it is. Let's press play. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, say we like how that sounds, I'm going to print it down to an audio track. So I'm going to create a stereo audio track, and I'm going to make the input just 1 and 2. So right here's my mic 1 and 2. And I'm going to mute this out so I don't hear a duplicate copy. And this is still going to be, my mix bus is going out virtual 1 and 2. So it goes out 1 and 2, and it's coming in mic 1 and 2, which is my line inputs. So I'll just arm that, and I go ahead and press record.
Quiero invitarte a comer, dime si se va a poder. Yo te paso a buscar y te traigo antes del anochecer. Deseo tocar tu cuerpo.
Okay, so that prints it down in there. Now if I zoom in here, this is our printed one. So say I print the whole song and I like how it sounds there. What I would do is then unarm the track, unmute it, and then solo it out. So all of these plugins also got printed onto it, along with the EQs out here, the analog EQs. So now I would put my limiter and my loudness meter here on the master so I could finish the mastering process for the song. And that will be just this printed EQ track. So usually I'll write printed EQ. And then if you want, you could also type in like boost at 2 dB, and then so on, so on, so on, whatever you put it in there. That's one way to remember what your recall is. So if the artist wants a adjustment, you go in, you make your adjustment, and then you print it again with the same settings. So you're not getting a different sound every time, which is the less convenient part of it. but it's as long as it sounds better, that's all that really matters. One other thing is when you print your audio down, it's going to be slightly delayed. There is a little bit of a delay. So if you're doing this for vocals or drum bus or something in the mix, not just the final print down like this, then you'll have to do an adjustment and line it back up. So what I would do is, let me just show you an example here. So let's go back to this being our regular output and everything. Let's go to this vocal here. It's a stereo vocal print, even though it's actually a mono, but it was printed as stereo. So I'm going to go ahead and do a stereo audio track. I'm going to go output on the vocal that I want printed. I'm going to go output virtual 1-2. So that's going into the EQs now. On my audio track, I'm going to mute it where I'm going to print and then record enable it. So this will be my print vocal EQ. And I'm going to make my input line 1 and 2. And then I could go ahead and do what I want to it. Now just remember that your plugins will be printed as well onto it. So if you don't want to print the plugins and you still want to make adjustments to those, you just want to do an EQ, then what I would do is go ahead and bypass these. So the sends aren't going to be printed regardless, but the inserts will be. So I just bypass everything, record, enable it, and press record. And then what I'm going to do once it's done recording is just unenable recording mode, go ahead and unmute this. What I want to do is line it up because when it goes through this, there is a slight delay. So if I were to play them together, you could hear the delay. Let me take this back to output 1 and 2. You hear that weird phasey sound? That's because they're slightly off. Now if I zoom in here, I can get them lined up. So I like to turn up my waveforms so I can really see what's going on. And then you can see that the printed version is slightly delayed. So I just go ahead and drag that over, get it lined up exactly with this one. Alright, so right about there. I usually look at bigger peaks to see if it's lined up. That looks good. And because you did EQ, it's going to be slightly different looking, but most of the peaks should be good. Alright, so that looks good. So once it's lined up, then you could go ahead and compare the two. So this is going to output 1 and 2 again, so it's not going through the EQs. And this one has the print on it, and we could compare. So here's before, and here's after. Alright, so that's just printing your EQ like that. And then what I would do is just go ahead and put my plugins. I just copy them over like this, and I could now apply everything to this new print like this. And then once you have that done, what you would want to do is mute out your old one. I usually would just like make it inactive like that, so I know that I don't want it played. And now I'm going just with the printed EQ vocals. If I ever need to go back and make a change, hopefully you wrote down your settings here. So I did like a boost at 7 dB at 16K, and then write out the rest of it so your recall notes would be there, just in case you need to go back in and make changes to the original and then apply different EQ slightly, or so you could get close, something like that. You just want your recall notes in there. But that's it. You could print your vocals and then just use the new printed vocal. Alright, so that is the EQP-WAs, and I showed you guys how it sounds, how it gets plugged in. Hopefully that helped out. If you were considering picking them up, you could hear the differences between the three, not on, bypassed, and EQ'd. And then also, if you bought them already or you're thinking about it, you just want to know how to set them up, then we covered that as well for the Apollo Twin. Now if you're using a different interface and you have more outputs, say like you have output 5 and 6, you could just use it as an insert in Pro Tools, which makes it easier, and you would just simply go output 5 and 6 on your interface to the input of the EQs, and then the outputs of the EQs would go in to the input 5 and 6 on your interface, and then in Pro Tools you just go to the analog insert you simply select 5 and 6, and then there you go, it's inserted in like that. That's easier, but if you have the Apollo Twin, you have to do it this way because it's a little bit different. Alright, so thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully it helped you guys out. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.